The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 216.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library, the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book that will enable you to grow personally and professionally. Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Welcome back to the EL. Today we have Noah Fleming, author of Evergreen. Cultivate the enduring customer loyalty that keeps business thriving. And Noah's actually put out an awesome offer that I want to mention right here up front, and that's that he's willing to give 5 copies of his book away. So of the first 5 people to email him, he will then send a copy. So it's Noah at noahfleming.com. Fleming with 1 M. So NOAHFLEMING. So the first 5 people that actually email him will get a free copy of his book. And on that same note, for those of you, again, I would love to hear from you. So please connect with me on Twitter, Wade D. Danielson, and let me know what authors and books you would love to hear come up next. I would love to hear what kind of books you guys would love to hear from, and then be able to pull them on. So without further ado, let's bring on Noah. Welcome, Noah, and thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Library.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Before we take a deep dive into your book, Evergreen, will you take just a moment to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you personally.
Sure. So personally, I'm a Canadian. I live in Ontario, Canada. So we're finally coming around the corner here, getting out of the cold, very snowy winter that we had. I'm a father of 2 girls, married 10 years. And in the business side of my personal life, which they're really the same thing, I'm a strategic marketing consultant. So I work with small to mid-sized companies, but also with entrepreneurs. I've worked with over 1,000 entrepreneurs since 2005, personally mentoring and coaching and working with them. And so that's what I do.
Excellent. Well, first off, thank you for sharing that. And now we'll jump right into your book, Evergreen. Cultivate the enduring customer loyalty that keeps business thriving. And I forgot to ask you this, but was the release date January 7th? Yeah,
it came out in January of this year.
Okay, perfect.
And yeah, that's quite the mouthful when I hear people say the title back. I usually just refer to it as just Evergreen.
Just Evergreen?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, from here on, we will refer to it as just Evergreen. And Noah, we're going to move quickly.
Sure.
But we're here, to cover some of the top questions that our listener would love to get answered, the future reader, before they purchase the book. So what was the inspiration behind writing Evergreen?
The inspiration is really simple. I saw a big problem with potential clients that wanted to work with me. I saw it with my own clients when I was just starting to work with them. This addiction to the new customer, this addiction to the new customer mentality that we need to focus all our efforts on just driving people through the doors, just driving new leads. The customer acquisition addiction is what I call it. And so the big inspiration was to look at that and say, well, hold on a minute. There's a better way here. You and your readers have all heard this before. People, marketing experts, the loyalty gurus, everybody comes out and says, well, it's far easier to keep the existing customer than it is to get a new one, right? You've heard that before. I think that's the worst business advice in the world. And it's the worst business advice in the world because those people, they never tell you what happens after that. And so I wanted to write a book that tells you exactly how to do that, exactly how to take that customer and truly maximize the value of them, to truly build that relationship.
So you've dove into this just a little bit, but you can expound upon it. Because I think just there you were telling us something that makes your book different. But we asked this next question to help differentiate or really find that needle in the haystack, because now so many books are coming out every single day. So what makes your book different from others regarding the same or similar topic?
Well, what makes it different is I start long before that. So long before that point of closing the sale, which is another big problem I have. You don't really close the sale. It's not the end point. That's only the start of the next thing. But I believe that customer loyalty, those customer relationships start long before the sale's ever been made. And in fact, you start to cement everything that happens after the sale way in advance. So Evergreen provides a big, deep look at what happens before the sale, to the point of the sale, and then into what I call happily ever after. And so that's what makes it different. Too many books start, if they're loyalty books or they're books books related to the maximization of customer value, they start with one simple thing like referrals, and they expand upon them from there. And that's fine. But to do all those things right, you have to do everything right from long before the person is ever a customer. So you need to actually know who they are. You need to attract the right customers. You need to know how to start building that relationship once you've got them. And then you need to know the right time to ask for referrals, the right time to build those processes into place. So that's what makes this book different, is I give you this big sort of holistic view of the customer life cycle in a more untraditional sense.
And Noah, how did you design the book to be read? Is this one that they can jump in, jump out, cherry picking information as they go? Or did you really design it to be read from front to back?
That's a great question. The book actually is broken down into two parts. So the first half of the book is a very strategic framework, which I'll talk about in a minute. And so I recommend reading that because I think it's applicable to any type of business. I think it's applicable to an entrepreneur, the solo professional, the small to mid-sized privately held company. And I also think it's applicable to Fortune 500s and major multi-billion-dollar organizations. So I highly recommend reading that. That said, if you've already got a successful business, you're doing well, you can certainly hop to the second half of the book, which is very tactical in nature. So it's very specific action steps you can take. So if you want to learn how to reactivate lost customers, you can jump to that section. If you want to learn more about referrals, you can jump to that. If you want to know how to truly understand what a customer is worth, you can learn that. So it's kind of, you're able to read it both ways, but what I'm finding is most people read the first few pages and they get hooked right away because it's written in a really engaging way that you can just sort of breeze through it pretty quickly. It's deep stuff, but it's not deep enough that it's hard to read.
So now that we know a little bit of the background, the purpose, the inspiration of the book, this is my favorite part where I ask that you take us through a deep dive. Give the listener, the future reader, a great idea of what your book's all about. So will you take the next 5 to 8 minutes and do that?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, there's two sections of the book. The first half is a strategic framework, which I call the 3 C's of Evergreen companies. So let me explain to you really quickly how this started. When I started to look at my own company, I had subscription-based services, I had my own online community, and I had really strong retention and loyalty. I had waiting lists most of the time for what I was offering because I wanted to keep it sort of closed and limited in access. So I wondered, what is it that I'm doing? Can I apply this to my own clients? And so I did. I started to work with clients and I started to help them implement this strategic framework. Then as I started to research the book years later, I started to look at bigger companies and I wanted to figure out what is the commonality here between great companies that have truly loyal customers that really seem to thrive all year long. So it's a good point to mention here. Evergreen, the metaphor itself is the metaphor of the tree, right? An evergreen tree is lush, it's lively, it's green all year long. Where other companies and other trees, they're like deciduous trees, where every year they drop their customers like dead leaves. And so we have cold winters, we have harsh times, and then we have to struggle and fight to put new growth on the trees to bring people back. So that's the evergreen metaphor, by the way. But so taking it back to the strategic framework, I started to notice there was 3 key things happening with the best entrepreneurs, the best solo professionals, and the best companies. And they had these 3 things just right. So the first C is character. And character is why you do what you do. So Simon Sinek wrote a great book called Start With Why that I'm sure many of your readers know. And he said, the world's best organizations start with why. Why before even thinking about the what. So character is all about why, but taking it to this much deeper level. And I walk you through specific steps to really build your character. Again, whether you're a solo professional, whether you're a small business owner, you need to really focus on your character. So a classic book in the marketing world called Positioning came out about 30 years ago. Al Ries and Jack Trout. They said that you only have a few seconds to decide what people are going to remember about you. And if you don't make that decision, then the market is going to decide for you. And what they found is most people decide to let the market make that decision. The same thing is happening today. Too many brands, too many companies, too many entrepreneurs focus on the what. They focus solely on the what, and they believe the what they do is the most important thing. So the first thing I found is that all great companies, all great entrepreneurs are really adamant about character. They really get it. They really expand upon it. They bring it out into everything they do. So that's the first C. The second C is community. The best companies in the world right now are building a strong sense of community amongst their customers. Now, what does that really mean? Does it mean a web forum? Does it mean a Facebook page? It might mean those, but it might mean a lot more. I give examples in the book of different industries, again, from restaurants to mechanics to toy manufacturers to the little guy like you and me, how we can build and structure a sense of community around what it is we do. And this is key. If you really want to retain people, if you really want to maximize the value of somebody that decides to give you money, then you have to understand these first two concepts truly in depth and truly embrace them. So again, it's not a message board. It's not just a forum, but it might be those things mixed together. It's really building the structures for people to come together around what it is you do. So this podcast that we're doing, for example, Wade, this is part of your community. This is value to your community. And they listen to this and they enjoy this and they want to know what's coming next. The third C is content. Now, content is the shorthand that I'm using for the thing that you give in exchange for money. This is your what now. So your content is your core product, your core service. But again, the big mistake is to believe that content is enough to bring people back again and again and again. Content is not enough to make people continue to do business with you again and again and again. So what you want to do is you want to make sure your character and your community really boost up your content, really put it up on this pedestal, really increase the emotional engagement and attachment to whatever it is you do or you sell, whatever product or service you provide. So it's all about making sure that that character and community really make your content stand out. So once you define those three things, and I help you really understand them, there's a lot of exercises, a lot of questions to be asked, then you can really get serious about learning about your customer base. And so in the next half of the book, I walk you through, we've all heard things about knowing your ideal customer, knowing their avatars. I walk you through my process of doing that to learn about them, and I call them archetypes, to learn about your different types of customers so you can start to tailor your sales and marketing messages to them on a much more personal level. So I call it really getting your hands in the soil. I continue to build on this evergreen metaphor, but to really learn about your existing clients on a much deeper level, to learn about their commonalities, their traits, to learn where you can reach them, where you can attract them. And so I start to try and help people break away from the addiction mentality that we need to be on Twitter, we need to be on Facebook, we need to be on Snapchat, we need to do all these new things. And instead, I help you focus on where are your ideal customers right now, and how do you most effectively, efficiently, and affordably reach them, attract them, and keep them as quickly as possible. So that's my big spiel in a nutshell, Wayne, of really the core content of the book.
So now we're going to ask you, you say you put it down in a nutshell. We're going to ask you to take it down even a step further. And we're going to pretend like the reader can only take away one concept, one principle, one action item out of your entire book. And what we're asking here is, if that was the case, they could only take one thing, what would you personally want that to be?
I would want them to realize there's a very simple graph in the first half of the book, which in the first chapter actually, that I call the marketing equilibrium. An equilibrium is the balance of two opposing forces. And what happens is we treat customer acquisition as one effort, and we treat the retention, the keeping of customers, as a separate thing. And the reality is they're not. They're the same thing. So you need to treat all your marketing, all your sales processes, everything you do equally as getting a customer and equally as keeping a customer. That's really what marketing is. So if you can take that and you can start to change your marketing to think about, okay, if I attract this customer, is this marketing going to keep them? Because sometimes marketing can be too overzealous and we create what I call the expectations gap. Sometimes marketing can attract customers that is too overpromising, and we won't be able to keep that customer. We've actually shot ourselves in the foot because we've given them something that we just can't deliver. So to understand that everything you do is equally about getting and equally about keeping the customer, that's a big game changer for me. And it's such a simple graph. It's such a simple visual that I present in the book, but just understanding that one principle can change your entire outlook of your company or your business or your career.
That's excellent. And thank you for sharing that and breaking that down. This next question might be a little bit difficult because I'm asking for a quote, but is there something that you wrote that's resonated with folks so far that you hope resonates with the audience or the reader? And we take a minute to explain what it means to you.
Sure. So there's a line in the book, which it's a little bit, it's about a paragraph. It's a quote, and it says, immediate marketing results like impressions, conversions, traffic, sales, email open rates, new subscribers, new customers is all really attractive stuff. The thrill of the chase, the satisfaction of the successful seduction. I get it, but it's got nothing on long-term customer retention, which is more analogous to love. And so, when you say you need to love your customers, Wade, it's a little bit of an odd thing to say because you don't truly love them as you would love your spouse or your children. It's a different kind of love. But what happens is we get the new customers, and then we start focusing on getting more. And so they're sort of left to fend for themselves. And so to me, this is really an important quote to me because I get it. I get all the fun stuff, right? I get how much fun it is to send out direct mail and to build websites and to watch conversions and to watch the traffic come in and to tweak headlines and to tweak font colors and to try and figure out the best right time to send an email. I get that. But it's not the thing that's going to build a truly successful company, right? Groupon was the fastest growing company of all time. But that's because they focused on just driving as many new people as they could through the doors. And they didn't really care about what happened after that. So they were terrible to their own client base, which if you've ever worked with Groupon as a business owner, they really don't have the mindset of how to care for you and how to help you. And so that was really their downfall. There's a great story in the book where I talk about how they almost destroyed one company because they gave her 7,500 new customers overnight. Now, most of us, when we hear 7,500 new customers, we start doing the math in our heads. We start trying to figure out what exactly that means. Well, this business owner said it was the worst business decision she ever made because she couldn't keep up with the demand. Her existing customers were unhappy. People were upset. She couldn't handle it. So new customers can really be a mixed blessing. So that's I'm sort of going on about that quote, but that was really a quote that really stood out to me when I wrote the book.
No, you did an excellent job. I'm glad that you took us through that because it's one thing just to say a quote, but it's so much more to actually explain what it means to you personally and give an example like you did. So that's fantastic. And Noah, our last question for the day, it won't be about your book, but it is asking for not any, but the book recommendation. So if there's only one book you could suggest to the listener based on the way that it's impacted your life, created a paradigm shift or even a lifestyle shift for you, what book would you recommend?
That's a really good question. I read a lot. One book that definitely changed my paradigm, changed my thinking, changed my career was Seth Godin's Linchpin. And I'm sure so many people would mention a Seth Godin book, especially listeners of this podcast. But that book to me really summed up a lot of what Seth had been writing about for years on his blog, but really, in a short time frame showed us that the world that we know has changed dramatically. The career paths that we all understood are gone. And so if you want to thrive, if you want to survive, if you want to make it in the new economy, if you want to survive the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years and thrive, then this is the way. You need to become the indispensable linchpin of whatever it is you do. And so that to me has had a lot of impact on what I do, the way I work with my own clients. And it also sort of comes through in a few of the concepts of this book, character, for example, being one of them, that, you have to become the undisputed thought leader, recognized authority, not to everybody, not to the outside world in great sums, but to your audience, to your community, to your people. That's the key. And so that book certainly was a paradigm shifter for me.
Excellent. Well, Noah, thank you. And we have had Seth Godin, but I'm not sure if that specific book has been referenced. I have to go back and look back. But yes, he has been, as an author, he's been suggested before. But Noah, before we depart, can you recommend the best way for our listeners to not only get more information on you, but to get more information on Evergreen and some of the other projects you're working on?
Sure. So the best way to learn more about me is to visit my website, which is noahfleming.com, NOAHFLEMING.com. They can sign up for my newsletter. I send a simple newsletter once a week that takes about 30 seconds to read. It's actionable, it's tactical, and I've got about 22,000 readers that absolutely love it. So they should definitely sign up for that. To learn more about the book, you can get it anywhere you like to buy your books, whether you like a hardcover or an electronic copy, or there's an audiobook version from Audible. So Amazon, anywhere you like to buy books, you can get Evergreen.
Perfect. Noah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your book with us. And we'll put those different links in the show notes at the elpodcast.com so people can go back and check those out further. But again, thank you for coming on and sharing your book with us.
Thank you, Wade.
Thanks again for listening in today. If you'd like more information on Noah or his book Evergreen, check out the show notes at the elpodcast.com. And as always, if you want an opportunity to win his book, we're going to switch it up a little bit. Be one of the first 5 people to email him at noah@noahfleming.com.
Looking for your next book idea? Head over to the elpodcast.com, where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs, with you for free. That's the elpodcast.com. Till the next time, keep it on the EL.